You know, really, I mean...
It was adorable, and it was quite transforming, the fringe.
Very transforming,
sort of,
yeah.
Bit of flickage all day. I was giving it all that one,
Yeah.
you know. What with the tash, it sort of worked well, so...
There's some things daughters should not see their mummy and daddy doing.
But I get to see it.
I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Sorry.
There's a scene where she sprays her hoo-ha with some perfume, which I really enjoyed doing in the audition tape, and I made that as humorous and as grotesque as possible.
An opponent.
Makes life much more exciting. Oh my God, it's him.
We meet the O'Haras. They've moved from London under kind of blurry circumstances. What can you kind of tease about the journey that we go on with each of your characters in the series?
Ooh. Well, Maud is not very happy. Maud is not delighted about being taken out of fabulous London, where she's a star of the stage and she's the queen of everything, and shoved down in a hideously cold, spider-ridden hellhole stately home where she has to supposedly parent and cook, and she's not going to do that because that's what Taggie does.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's the opposite for Taggie. Taggie, I think, loves nature and desperately wants to be in the countryside, and she has such a strong, I think, connection to her family, and she's very obsessed with keeping them together and keeping them a tight-knit group. I think that's a huge... intention Taggie has throughout the series is keeping the family together, and I think she thinks by going to a house in the middle of the countryside, that's her way of keeping
mother from misbehaving.
Yes. yeah.
And what can you kind of tell me about your mother-daughter dynamic? Because I feel like that's quite an intriguing aspect of the show.
Let's put it this way, I'm much nicer to Bella than Maud is to Taggie.
Yes,
I think, which isn't hard, by the way. Maud is not a great mother.
I think it's complicated. It's complicated because I do understand. I do understand part of me understands why you do it. Like your career's been slightly taken away from you.
Everything's been taken away.
You've had
from
to sacrifice
her.
your career for Declan's, and there's a sort of frustration, and then I think your focus kind of goes on to
herself.
Yeah.
Or whoever she can get attention from. So, Maud is a very insecure, damaged lady who's also staring down the barrel of not being 30 and fabulous and the centre of attention. So she's quite delicate, even though everything about her appears quite bombastic and sort of brash and outrageous, and she'll go over the top for anything, for a hug, a kiss, a clap, so but she will.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so I think she never quite got her head around the idea that she's got these extraordinarily beautiful children. Like, it was fine for her son to go off and be fabulous because that's her son, and men are men. But for her daughters are growing, and they're so beautiful, and they're so kind, and they're so capable. And the more incredible Taggie is, or Caitlin is, the more she thinks that's negative for her. It's taking away from her power. And so it's a really interesting sort of like mother-daughter dynamic.
I think Taggie understands that. Like, I think that the reason why it's complicated is I do want to be loved by you, and I also think I understand why you leave in the end. So,
spoiler.
Yeah, that was a spoiler. Sorry, but you actually don't. We don't know whether you do or not. Well, we genuinely don't.
No, we don't. I haven't a clue.
We actually really don't.
I haven't a clue.
We've got a cliffhanger to look forward to.
Yeah.
What was your reaction to Freddie's wig?
Oh, the wig thing?
Yeah.
Well, I've never wore a wig for anything, so I didn't realise it's a lot of aggravation. I'm one of them actors, like, you rap and you want to get straight in your motor, but most people in this had wigs, so there's a queue of people to get their wigs off. Now listen, I'm losing my hair, and I'll hold my hands up, age and all that. So actually having a fringe all day, I loved it. And I was playing with that fringe all day. Really good wig I had and all. Really, I mean...
It was adorable, and it was quite transforming, the fringe.
Very transforming,
sort of,
yeah.
Bit of flickage all day. I was giving it all that one, What with the tash, it sort of worked well, so... And it's, I put the wig on and I sort of became the character.
You became Freddie.
I became Freddie.
I hated my wig.
How did you react to yours,
she didn't have a
Catherine?
wig.
I didn't have a wig, no.
Oh, did you
She had
not?
a very, very tight perm.
It's my natural hair doing its own thing. It was like, I felt like I was sort of coming out as the curly-haired person that I am.
Love that.
Finally. Yeah.
Embrace it, baby.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Obviously, both of your characters, I feel like they're very similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, that's really how they bond. They're kind of both stuck in these somewhat loveless marriages. Can you tell me a bit about where we meet them in the series?
I agree that they're similar, and I think that's why they notice each other and are drawn to each other in these social occasions. I think they first meet when they're at a party at the kind of boss's house, and Freddie's there because he's a very rich man and they're trying to get him on the board, whereas Lizzie's sort of obediently going with her vain, preening, self-regarding prick of a husband who is...
He is a prick as
her husband James, who's a presenter and, on the make. So they're both there under very different pretexts. But
You're sort of ingrained into the Rutshire sort of
Yeah.
world, whereas Freddie isn't at all working class, but he's the richest one in it, and so he's not sure about his surroundings, but his wife Val is desperate to be part of this sort of social elite, and so there's a connection, I think, between us quietly, which is really beautifully played out as it goes on, which is why you have to watch it to get to the end to see what happens.
What really stuck out to both of you about Rivals, about the scripts that made you both really want to be part of it?
God, I mean, you hear Jilly Cooper, Rivals. I'd read the book, and then I read the script, and I did an audition tape, a self-tape, and I loved. It was such a fun scene to even just do the tape. We were only sent like a few scenes, but even just then I was like, oh my God, this character is so fun. And I liked how funny it was. There's a lot of kind of, serious messages in there, but it's funny and it's raucous and fun, and that's a bit of me. So yeah.
And Jilly Cooper's so iconic, and we all know her work, and some of us have loved her work for a long time. And so to know that and to be excited to open the scripts, knowing that she's an exec producer, she's absolutely at the helm, and then to read these scripts which were unexpectedly human and intelligent and quality writing, up there with any other quality drama that you might hope to see, and then to meet the team behind it, who were just like giddy with excitement and passion. And then the amazing cast. It just was a gift. And, that's
so
how
when
I
we all
felt.
walked into the read through, and it was the biggest read through I've ever. We were all looking at each other going,
scary.
"What the hell?" It was like every single person from Disney, every single. And I just realised then, I was like, "Oh my God, this is big, and people are really backing this." But the read through was absolutely terrifying. You all of a sudden just can't remember how to read and can't remember your own name. So,
And obviously both of you mentioned that you were both familiar with Jilly Cooper's work before doing this. Did you have to have like a read through of Rivals before taking on the role to reacquaint yourselves with the characters?
No, we were very kindly gifted a copy, which Jilly had taken the time to sign for us all individually.
It's quite different to the book, though, isn't it? So it's because I remember reading the book and I started reading it again, and I thought I'm not going to read it too much because I didn't want to get too locked into that. But
we didn't. We weren't told to read the book. Some of us had read it originally, but they have, as with Jilly at the helm, as I say, they've taken it and chewed it up. No, that's not right. But they have absolutely.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, created a modern, fantastic version.
Did you read them all?
Yeah. Oh, all
Really?
of them. Yeah. But my mum, because mum would, she'd have what she called her Jeffrey Archer legs and her Jilly Cooper legs, and that just meant that she was out in the sunshine in the back garden reading, and she was reading for so long that she burnt her legs. So,
That's so good.
yeah, back in the day where sun cream was not a thing.
Yeah.
But yes, so mum always had a copy of, she had Rivals, and I remember stealing it from her and reading it, and 'cause she would
Really?
just cackle laughing. She would absolutely, you'd hear her, oh, she's reading Jilly again, and always waiting for the next one to come out. So, yes, I'm in a period drama where I remember the period. Great.
And I've got to ask, in episode 3, when we see Maud riding in very spectacularly on that camel, was
As you
that
do.
real?
Oh yeah, that was a
it's
real
real.
camel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have pictures of me in my
You took it in your
dungarees
stride.
arriving on set at
Did you have a practice
Sparrows
go?
Fort. Yeah, I had a practice go round just behind the food tent. It was hilarious. It was great.
I mean,
Camel
you really,
was so chill.
Yeah, you were so chill.
Well, I mean,
You
it
really
was.
were so unfazed by that.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it, and they're so tall. It sounds like such a stupid thing to
love
say,
that.
but they're so tall.
And Bella, obviously, Taggie is obviously a recurring character in the novels. Would you hope for further installments of this TV series? And kind of what would your hopes be for Taggie in the future?
Good questions.
Would I prefer further installments of Taggie's, like Taggie being in, if there were more seasons, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved the book, and I love Taggie's character journey, and I like how complicated it is with Rupert, and I think she's quite a coming of age story for her, and I think it's a great character. I'd like to see it develop more, for sure. Yeah.
And what would you want the hopes for Taggie to be in the future, as
Would you
it
like a
kind of
camel?
relates to Rupert?
As it relates to Rupert, what do I hope for Taggie? I mean, it really depends on where they go. I think it's quite hard because as being a young woman in 2024, I probably have that lens on it. But actually, it's period drama in the 80s, so probably what I want to happen might not be right for the time, and so I feel like Jilly did a pretty good job with the book, so I feel like I'll leave it to her to decide.
And what can you kind of tease about how that relationship unfolds throughout those final episodes?
Well, we've been sworn that we're not allowed to give it away
Okay.
Kill him.
in a sex game, which is not how you think it's going to pan out. To be fair, no,
It's a surprise.
it's very interesting the way it pans out actually, and I think it will freak a few people out.
Yeah, it's beautifully done. It was beautifully written, and
We bond over bondage, is what we sort of bond over.
What were your reactions to those final scenes, and how things pan out for both of your characters?
Well,
I think-
they shot it in order as well.
That was a big thing, actually. I realised, because that's not typical, but because there were 8 episodes and it was shot in order, it was almost like as we got to know each other as people, we were getting to know each other as Freddie and Lizzie, which really helped. It's quite hard, isn't it, doing things out of
It
order
is.
sometimes. And normally, I think it's normally more that it's the case usually, isn't it? If we'd had to do those late scenes in the first 2 weeks,
Yeah, but I think,
I don't think I'd have known how Lizzie
No,
would
you're
have
right,
played
you're
it,
right.
or so. That
no, it
was
was
a
really
privilege,
well
yeah.
constructed in the way we shot it, so that we sort of knew the characters really. I mean, when you start shooting, you think you know what you're doing, but you're trying to find your feet with it, and so by the time we got to do whatever scenes are coming, we was all over it.
Yeah. It felt very easy to be in their shoes, although I don't think we do wear shoes.
Well, I'm a loafer, Freddie's loafers. But it was a joy.
Oh, I
I
know
enjoyed
shoes,
it. It was
yeah.
really one of those really cool, brilliant jobs to be part of, and you feel like, oh wow, I'm so grateful to be part of this.
And there's so many standout scenes throughout this series so far. Were there any memorable scenes that really struck a chord in your mind?
Yours?
I really enjoyed when we were all together. I love playing those sort of social scenes, how a character behaves with different people, how she's, sometimes because I'm a writer, how she's watching people, how she's admiring people, how she's sort of locking on to Taggie, how she's sort of really flattered when Baz talks to her in the bar, and how she is sort of a bit in love with Maud. And so I just loved getting to interact with lots of different characters, the Cooperverse. It felt a bit like a sort of restoration comedy sort of thing, but you get to tell lots of different stories about that character just by the way they behave with different people. So I just enjoyed that, because quite often in shows, I've done a show where all my scenes were with one person, and although my favourite scenes were the ones with him, I did like getting to sort of act with lots of different people.
That's a beautiful answer, very sophisticated and complex, whereas I just liked spinning around in my little Sinclair electric car, which was a thing
You
back
did
in the
enjoy
day.
that,
Yeah, but I've got to
didn't
say
you?
that, Freddie in this is very much ahead of the game. And, he's talking about electric cars, in the 80s and stuff. So So that was cool, having a little spin about in that. But
I thought you were going to say a karaoke scene, Danny.
yeah, that was a traumatic experience for me.
Really? How come?
Well, because I can't really sing, and I was singing without music to a room full of people, and that was quite early in the shoot as well. You got to commit, and I'll tell you what, it's just Bat Out of Hell.
Yeah.
That's
it was
a
pretty
tricky
iconic.
song, and it's 12 minutes. Luckily, they cut me off at 6.
And obviously, Jilly Cooper was working as an executive producer on this. Did you get to speak to her at all about bringing your characters to life?
Yeah, she was extremely around, and she was really encouraging, and was nothing but nice with us all. I had dinner at her house.
You went for a separate dinner, so.
I did, because I was doing an audio book for her, and she's just endlessly charming and interesting. Chatted a lot about the Spartans. I feel genuinely privileged to know her. I really do.
No, I do.
Yeah, and she loves him.
I like flirting with her, you know what I mean? And,
you can't get a word in edgeways if he's in the room, because she loves him. But yeah, she's brilliant, and she's just been nothing but a positive and encouraging presence. So
it was an honour to be able to show off in front of her as well, because she was on set, and it must be, watching these characters come to life for her, she created. It must be a beautiful thing. It must be really, really rewarding for her.
No, exactly.
And I know she's really proud of the show. So we did it.
Yeah.
We did a good job.
Yeah. And the thing I really love about the series so far is there's just so many stories, so many characters within this. Obviously, it's centred on these kind of 3 powerful men, but behind all of them are equally as powerful, almost quietly powerful wives and women around them. Can you tell me a bit about how both of your characters kind of slot into those quietly powerful storylines?
Yeah, that's my favourite thing about Rivals is the women ops. Because you've got these, amazing, strong men at the helm of it, but then, you kind of, as it unravels, you really understand these complex women. And to write women in a flawed way like this, especially with Sarah Stratton, I think it's it's a way more modern thing to do. It used to be that, the women had to be a certain way, be written a certain way. People didn't dare to kind of celebrate women like Sarah Stratton. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's so fun to play a character like that. So with Sarah, she's the younger wife of Paul Stratton, the MP, and you kind of see her growth kind of go. She uses her sexuality to get the things that she wants in the beginning, and you kind of, towards the end, you kind of understand why she feels that she has no choice but to do that. So a character like Sarah, who could so easily have been written as unlikable, hopefully I've made her quite fun and funny, and there's a scene where she sprays her hoo-ha with some perfume, which I really enjoyed doing in the audition tape, and I made that as humorous and as grotesque as possible. So I think it's just great taking these women and picking them apart and writing them as these flawed individuals, and just kind of going, well, it was a time where we had to, women maybe had to use their sexuality to get the things that they wanted, or, and then you sort of come away from it going, how far have we come in the world?
My character doesn't use her sexuality. And I think Lady Monica Baddingham, it really represents old England, which Jilly Cooper's world is very much, set in. So she's Tony Baddingham's wife, so her purpose really is to, I think, show this world that Jilly writes in, and also to see Tony Baddingham, who we see being caustic and potent and in all powerful man at work. We see him at home with her, and a different side of him, and a different lens on his world, and we also get to see the impact on her. So she's
so funny though as well.
Yeah.
So funny. The way Claire plays it, it's so genius.
And like you said, the dynamic with Tony is so intriguing, and it's a dynamic we don't really learn about until the end of episode 1, when you see they share different beds, they kind of lead different lives. How was it to kind of explore, in a series that is very overtly sexual, a very non-sexual relationship?
I sort of loved it because, a caveat is this is not how I personally live, but I think a lot of people, I think a lot of women, you know, of her age aren't really bothered about that side of a relationship. It's a very loving, respectful, you know, relationship, marriage that they've had for many years. So to me, the fact that they have separate bedrooms wasn't a pointer of frigidity or crisis in their relationship. I just think a lot of people don't like.
I know loads of people who have separate bedrooms.
Yeah, well, yeah, what a luxury. But you know, and I think for her, it demonstrates beautifully as well that she's her own woman. She's not, you know, she's not bothered about his job really and his world. She's bothered if he's happy or not. But she's got her own life, and I think again that's quite common. It doesn't mean that it's a dysfunctional relationship. It just means that they're two people operating very well, you know, side by side. So I really enjoyed leaning into that.
For both of you, were there any scenes in particular that stuck out to you as being really empowering for your characters?
I have a scene with Catherine Parkinson that I really love to do. I think it shows a really vulnerable side to Sarah Stratton. That's kind of when everything is all crumbling around her. Because, you know, she has a car crash and it all does crumble around her, and Catherine actually comforts her at a time where she could actually be quite confrontational with Sarah, but she isn't, and she kind of comforts her, and I think that's a really nice scene that I enjoyed filming. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I enjoyed some of those quiet scenes that seemingly were Monica and Tony quite content together, but that I think do demonstrate quite powerfully their connection. And I enjoyed knowing that was an antidote to the blissfully brilliant, thrilling world that we also see Tony in. So I found the quietness of those moments quite empowering, yeah.
And I guess finally, what were your reactions to that final episode script? I know you said it was being rewritten as you were kind of filming it. What was your reaction to those final scenes?
Oh, just eating and drinking them, delicious, and always thinking, I want more, just more. So you want episode 9 and 10 and 11 and 12.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
You know, so that's
I think we all felt that on the job. We were all really gutted it ended because we became really close really early on, and the storylines are so fun, and there's so many group scenes. It was like a real ensemble cast. And you start to get, you know, as you go on, you get really invested in other people's characters, so, and their storylines, even if you don't touch. And so there is that element. I had like cliffhanger, great, but also like, tell me, no, what's happening?
So it's safe to say that you'd both want a season 2?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I want season 3.
Yeah.
And 4. It's these.
Oh, not 5.
You've got so many glorious characters to follow.
I know, there's so much.
And what was really wonderful, I don't know how you felt, but I loved the fact that when I was watching it, I got to see what you were doing with Alex, what all the other characters.
Oh my gosh!
Just to be able to go, oh look, because I'm as proud of her as I would be about my own kids. Because and I was going, look at her go,
mama.
and she's like a movie star.
No, absolutely. Well, that's not true.
Stunning.
But I also, what was I going to say? Watching. Actually, do you know what was so amazing was when we got to watch the whole series under my covers at 4 a.m. I terrified. So much of the time you come together in group scenes, but there's so many different storylines, and when you get to see people that you really get to know and love, and see what they've been doing throughout the series, because like half of the time you're not with them and you're focusing on your own thing, and I mean this is a really obvious thing to say, but it was amazing watching you and Aidan and the complications between your marriage, especially as your daughter not seeing things behind closed doors and seeing and understanding
There's
why
some things daughters should not see their mummy and daddy doing.
But I get to see it.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, oh God. Sorry.